Hello, hello, hello. This is Donna Reiners. I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm happy that you're here with me. And today's topic is pressure, pain, and possibilities. Pressure, pain, and possibilities. I think we all encounter pressure. At some point in time, we encounter physical pain, sometimes mental pain, emotional pain. And in the midst of that, how can you see the possibilities, right? How can we see the possibilities? How can we see possibility in the midst of pain, in the midst of pressure, in the midst of things that don't always make sense? So I want to talk about that today. So first of all, a song came to mind, and it's what spurred this topic for me. I don't know what your age is, but do you recall the song? Oh my goodness, it was right there on the top of my tongue. That is so funny. I can see all the obstacles in my way. Dun, 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 dun. All of the dark clouds that had me down. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. Yeah. La 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 la, nothing but blue skies. Anyway, in the midst of that, I was noticing, I thought it in my heart, what I heard was, I can see all the obstacles in my way. In the midst of the dark clouds being gone, there's still obstacles in my way, but now I can see them. Isn't that amazing? When you can clear the darkness, when you can clear what is surrounding you and keeping you from seeing, from hearing, sometimes from understanding, it reveals the obstacles. What are the obstacles? Sometimes the obstacles are the pressure, but what about the pressure? What about pressure? What do you do when you see the pressure, whether it's in your relationship with a spouse or a friend or a sibling or a family member or someone at work or what have you, or maybe even a conflict, a pressure from hearing something that's on a podcast or on television or in the airwaves somewhere or social media. The pressure that comes on the inside, which represents a conflict for you, that sometimes would cause you to even have a pain, like a conflict so deep that you can't understand it. So how to see it? How to see it is clearing the darkness, clearing your own false belief system, clearing what you know is not true, whether it's something you believe or something you've leaned in to believe that someone else believes. So you've taken on their belief system. But when you can clear these beliefs, these what I call false beliefs, which are really lies. When we believe a lie, it's a false belief. It's a system of some sort that has shaped us, that's molded us, that has been making us, unbeknownst to us. It could be all the way back down into the womb. It could have been when you were a child, and now here you are. Like, for instance, I'm in my 60s, and sometimes I might experience what many call a trigger, and it roots back to childhood when maybe a specific emotional memory comes up, and I may not have an actual physical memory for it. I may not have an actual clear picture of what happened, but sometimes I have an emotional memory that rises, that gives me a rise, that makes me somehow shift my attention and feel pressure or feel pain. this is our life, right? And I was talking with someone recently, and I thought, well, what happens when you have pressure? If you're praying all the pressure away, not that I want to invite more pressure, right? But if all we do is pray away the pressure, then how are we going to be strong? How do we, like when we go to the gym and we're exercising our muscles, or maybe we're exercising at home, the only way to find strength in your bones, in your muscles, is to do it consistently enough before you break through to the next sign of strength for you, the next weight that's even stronger, right? So if we can learn how to address the pressure from a healthy place instead of an unhealthy place, then we will see more breakthrough. We will see much more breakthrough. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you have this pressure in a relationship, someone you've known for a long time, but maybe you've been breaking through on your own in some areas, or that's your desire to break through on your own in some areas. You want to break out of this pressure, but all of a sudden there's strength in this pressurized system. It's like this storm is evolving relationally. And so, interestingly enough, if you think about how when you gather around a sibling or a spouse or a friend you've known for years, normally you gather around on the inside of you, you have a common denominator of some sort. Let me explain a little bit more. Let's say you came from a very abusive background and you marry someone and you just feel comfortable with them, you feel strength with them, you feel alive with them, and you find out later that they had a very similar abusive background. It could have been verbal, yours could have been physical. Yours could have been nonverbal, and theirs could have been physical. But you had this pressure when you were younger that was very similar to each other. And so you were attracted to each other. And then 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're getting healed of those traumatic events, and you're finding you have clarity regarding those emotional pressures you had growing up. And maybe there's now something coming in your relationship with this friend or this spouse or someone you've known for a long time. And you find yourself growing, but you don't feel like they're growing. So now all of a sudden you think they're toxic. I'm giving you examples of what it could look like. You think they're toxic, and that gives pressure to you because you're like, well, why would I be around someone? La 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 la. When actually, you had the same stuff inside of you when you met them, but now because you're getting to a place where there's less and less in you, you're finding conflict being around someone who still has the mirror of who you used to be versus who you're becoming. That can bring pressure to you. It could also bring pain. You could feel emotionally unsettled. You could feel pain inside in your feelings because all of a sudden, wow, you don't feel like you know them anymore. You understand them anymore. But if you could stop and look at the perspective-wise, step back and look at what's happening in the dynamics of your life, to have clarity regarding what's happening versus just going by what you feel, going by what you emotionally, what all your feelings are going around, right? There's trauma points, there's belief systems, and there's action plans that we put into place when we were young. What are action plans? Action plans are, I'm going to give you a real life example. When I was young, I had a situation where I was physically abused, including having a pillow placed over my head while I was physically abused, which caused me to feel trapped, caused me to feel out of control, caused me to feel like I couldn't trust that person, and that person was male. So it caused me not to trust men. When you're young, you're making all sorts of things on the inside of you. I'll never trust a man. I'll never be alone with a man. All these things happen on the inside. We don't even know they're happening. But those vows, those decision-making places inside of us are triggered later in life. In this instance, when I was around 13, my parents, my mom and my grandma and I were driving down the road, and we had a flat tire. And an 18-wheeler pulled over to help us, and I took them to the back of the car to get some tools, and that person made a grab at me. And I was so shocked. I got my hammer out, a little strong little girl, got my hammer out, and I'm like, listen, with friends like you, who would need an enemy? And I'm like, we don't need your help. You can just go. And then my mom comes around the corner and says, what's going on? I'm like, I'm telling this guy to go. We don't need his help. And mom's like, yeah, we do. We need the flat tire change. And my grandma was there. And I told them what happened. And my mom's like, well, I don't believe you. I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe me? That just happened. And he's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And then I'm like, yes, you did. And I just confronted him in front of my mom, my grandma. Because inside of me, I'm thinking to myself, I could never trust a man who says they're going to help me. They'll only hurt me. They'll only lie to me. See, all those things are happening on the inside of me when I'm a little girl, and I don't even realize it. And so moving forward, later in life, something might trigger that. And there are more things like that. And some things happened in my first marriage that were similar and that I couldn't trust. Things occurred where it was out of my control, and I'm like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Why are you doing that to me? Again, putting in motion the theme in my life, which was, I cannot trust you. I cannot trust anyone who says they're going to care for me or help me or be there for me, but most specifically, men. So you take that, those are called chapters in your life, and those chapters can go a long time. And so the 5-year-old incident, the 13-year-old incident, the 20-something-year-old incident, and then you compile all those up where I got held up at gunpoint later in life, and other things occurred that made me feel entrapped. So every time I felt entrapped, I felt more and more and more entrapped until I felt like I was going to explode. But when you can find the route, the ROUTE it took in your life and remove that from you and help you clarity regarding why you're responding the way you are to XYZ, it can not only give you peace, but it can give you the possibilities and new decision making in the midst of it. New decision making in the midst of what feels very traumatic. And sometimes you're in a situation where it isn't traumatic at all, but you feel trauma. You feel drama because you're feeling all this emotional junk. You're feeling all this emotional stuff coming on you because somehow, some way you've been triggered by all that emotional stuff and you don't even know you've been triggered. And so when you can look at those situations and see them and absolve them off of you from a real place of identity inside versus you shifting blame to that person for being responsible for you feeling XYZ. Now listen, I know there are times when we are victims, but we don't have to carry a victim attitude. We don't have to say for the rest of the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I'm always a victim. Because if you have that kind of attitude and that kind of mentality, you're going to attract other people that feel victims. And then eventually you're just going to attract what seems to be betrayal because victims always feel betrayed. These are very practical in my brain, even though they might feel like spiritual, but they're emotional tools to help you in real life situations, practical situations, whether it be, like I said, at home with a spouse, a relationship, a social gathering, a work relationship, politics, religion, all of it. You can find out why you react the way you do, which will help dispel these decisions that you're making that make you want to go to heck with you, don't want anything to do with you. Which could be you saying, hey, adios, I want to divorce you, or hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore, or whatever, or I'm quitting this job. It can stop you from making rash decisions. because the situation's inside of you, not outside of you. And so, if you can step back and look at it long enough, it can help you have peace and see possibilities in the midst of pressure, in the midst of pain. So you can cause things to change for the better, for good, versus staying in the same space that feels like a mess. Because I guarantee we want to be a message. We want to lean into a space of truth, into our real, true identities, where we can find the message in the midst of our mess so we don't remain a mess. And so our lives don't remain messy. And so cling to truth in the midst of a mess. Cling to, wait, this is not true. This is not my true self. Find a place of neutral ground inside of you and believe the best in that situation. Because I guarantee if you're in a place where you're shifting blame over here, but yet you're having this implosion of emotional duress, I can almost guarantee you that person has similar things happening inside of them, or maybe they're absorbing some of your emotions, and you're both or all of you are feeling some emotional turmoil similarly, and you're triggering off each other. So if you can step back and look at it real practical, it will really help you get through situations and see possibility instead of just being developed by the pain and developed by the pressure. You can be developed by the possibility. And then believing the best about yourself, loving yourself in the midst of a mess, loving others in the midst of your mess, loving others in the midst of their mess, also opens you up to seeing possibility versus only seeing through the perspective of pressure or pain. Anyway, I bless you. Just wanted to share that with you today. And I'll continue with other nuggets and other ways for you to help yourself move forward in life, in loving you and loving your community. This is Donna Reiners, and I bless you. Until soon. Bye.